Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 2 of the Loaders Lane to the Cheltenham Festival, where I'm going to be reflecting on some of the Cheltenham clues over the past week or so. Also as well in this video I'll be looking forward to some of the key horses we want to be taking a look at this week. There's some nice horses making their seasonal reappearances over the obstacles, over hurdles, over fences. So there's a lot to get stuck into later on this week, and I'll be telling you what horses you should be looking out for. And also as well I'll be answering some of your questions. I know some of you left some comments in the comments box below last week asking on a few horses that you want to know my thoughts and feelings on them towards the Cheltenham Festival. So I'll be answering some of your questions as well, and I will be giving an anti-post selection as well at the end of this video. So if you haven't done so already, please remember to hit the subscribe button for more videos here on my YouTube channel. If you're enjoying the videos as well, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Really appreciate all the support you give me. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do, where my handle is at LuckyLoader15. It is now fair to say that the jump season is coming at us thick and fast. We had the Persian Moor meeting last week on Friday and Saturday, and it's often traditionally seen, or has been especially in the last few years, as the start of the real jump season, and we had plenty of clues on offer at that meeting. It was a little bit disappointing in the end because the ground dried out really over the Friday and Saturday, and it meant we had a few non-runners. Those covered the likes of Fiddler on the Roof, Fuchsial Raffles, so it was disappointing that we didn't see some of the top class horses take part at the weekend, but we saw some nice horses on show, plenty of clues, and really the major talking point to come away from it was McFabulous in the Persian Moor hurdle. Often a race that's thrown up some great horses over the years. Time Hill won it last year, and you're always looking at horses that are going to be competing in that race, because normally it's a good early test for those that are going to be doing well this season. But to be fair, even though McFabulous was a very impressive winner, it probably wasn't the strongest renewal. You had Court and Bold in there for Fergal O'Brien, finishing second place. He'd been running well throughout the summer, won a couple of races, and normally the summer horses, once we get to this time of year, start to fade away, and it's normally what we call the more powerful winter horses that come to the fore and show their class. But yeah, it wasn't a really deep renewal this year. Get Around as well was a nice story for Ella Pickard, but other than that there really wasn't too much to worry about for McFabulous. I thought he did a great job, you know, but it's hard to say what he really beat. He travelled really lovely into the race and showed a good turn of foot and won very comfortably in the end, and really didn't have to get out of second gear. And it's good that he won that, because he's a horse that Paul Nicholls has always talked about as a top class prospect, but until earlier this year he'd been a little bit disappointing. He'd shown class as a bumper horse. He won at this card a couple of years ago, and then earlier in the season last year he was slightly disappointing. I remember he flopped on his hurdle debut, which I think possibly came at Chepstow. He didn't do that well at all at Ascot, and then they really did go back to the drawing board with him. But ever since he returned earlier this year, he won a nice race at Market Raisin, and then he went on to score in the EBF final, which is always a competitive handicap, at Kempton, and he did that job really easily. And the plan now is to go for the Stayers hurdle. I think he would have a good chance if he lined up in that race. It doesn't look the strongest of divisions this year, and for me I just think McFabulous was definitely the standout name on the card. However, really the main other thing to take away from that meeting was how well a lot of Paul Nicholls horses ran. He absolutely cleaned up. I think he had 7 or 8 winners in the end. They include the likes of Grand Sancy, who won the listed novices chase. I believe he can only continue as a novice towards the end of this towards the end of the year. Once we get into 2021, I think he loses his novice status because he started out as a novice last season. So he had a bit of experience in the bag. But despite some of the others not turning up and it being a very small field, he did the job very nicely, you know. And in the end, I think he couldn't have done any more, you know, to win that race. It was a very commanding performance, and I think he's definitely going to be a nice horse to follow. I thought Secret Investor as well did really well. Not sure where we're going to see him next. Maybe a race like the Ladbrokes Trophy could be on the agenda for him. He's always been a bit of a horse that I've not been able to take a shine to, Secret Investor. For me, he'd always made the odd mistake here and there, but he did seem to get his jump in better shape at Chepstow at the weekend, so I thought he did very well, and he's definitely a horse I think you want to keep on side this season. And also as well, I thought Paul Nicholls launched a nice new juvenile hurdler in the shape of Hell Red, who did the job very nicely in the end. But again, it probably wasn't the strongest contest on paper, and you probably will want to be looking at other horses later on down the line. But I know Nicholls always seems to send a juvenile out early on anyway in the jump season, and they tend to go on a bit of a roll. You might remember Quail Destin was one of those horses a couple of years ago that mopped up a few nice races. I think also as well, so Psycho kind of fitted that mould last year. So it's kind of the way Nicholls goes sometimes with his juvenile hurdlers. He'll sometimes send a really good one out early, and they might clean some of the early juvenile graded races. So I think Hell Red will definitely fit that profile, but coming towards the Cheltenham Festival, I don't know if I would want to keep him on my side as a Triumph Hurdle. He could maybe be a Triumph Hurdle horse, but as we know time and time again, you always for some reason want to be looking on a little bit later in the season. So yeah, I thought Hell Red, he couldn't have done the job much better, but he was a very nice. However, it just wasn't all about the Persian War meeting last week. At the weekend we had some good action at Fairyhouse, where we saw Queensbrook, who finished in third place in Champion Bumper last season for Gordon Elliott, made her hurdle debut. She got the job done, she scrambled home. Not sure it was the strongest race in the world. She's been cut to around about 12-1 shot for the Mares Novice Hurdle. We're going to see plenty of nice mares coming up over the next couple of months, so she's definitely a horse that I'm still interested in, but I wouldn't want to be getting stuck into any anti-post betting at this point. And also as well on Sunday we saw a nice card at Newton Abbot. We saw the return of Master Tommy Tucker and Our Dancer. Our Dancer did the job very nicely. Probably was more fitter on the day, I would have said, than Master Tommy Tucker. And Master Tommy Tucker, he's a bit of an enigma really, because we know he definitely has all the makings to be a top class horse. However, he sometimes just fails to put it all together. He always makes a mistake, or he just finds one too good on the day. And I don't know really where to go with him. I don't know if he'll have any Cheltenham targets this season. Our Dancer, I think maybe stepping up in trip could see him in a better light. That was over slightly further to what he's been racing in the past. He's always raced over 2 miles. That was the first time he'd gone over 2.5 miles, and I thought actually he benefited for going up in trip. However, if he was to go for a race like the Ryanair, would I want to be siding with him? Possibly not, you know. But Our Dancer, you know, I think he's definitely going to be a horse you want to look at later on in the season and see if really maybe stepping up in trip could be the key to him. So Our Dancer, I think he could be in for a good season, but like I said, he's not a horse I would want to be playing in any Cheltenham anti-post markets at this stage. And then also as well, we saw Stormy Island, who I actually tipped up for the Mares Chase last week. We advertised her at 20-1. I saw she was cut with a few firms. You can't get that price anymore. I think the best price is 16-1. I thought she ran okay. She bumped into Eldorado Allen of Colin Tizards, who did promise to be a really nice novice hurdler, but then he's had a few injury problems along the way. I think he returned to handicapping last year, but he really failed to deliver. I'm not sure really what to make of Eldorado Allen. I think he could be a nice chaser. Again, he's not a horse I would want to be really getting stuck into any of the novice chase markets with him. But to regards to Stormy Island's performance, I think maybe A, she probably needed the run, and I think B as well, maybe the trip was just slightly on the short side for her. I think over 2.5 miles over fences she could do quite well, but I thought she jumped nicely enough. You know, for a novice, she's going to have to obviously improve her jumping, but I think the more she the more practice she has over her fences in race company, I think she'll definitely improve. And I still think with not sitting on a bad bet there at 20-1, we'd have to see her probably another couple of times to really judge where she's at and if fences are going to be the making of her. But Stormy Island, I thought it was an okay reappearance, but we still probably want to see a little bit more to be absolutely confident that she's a stellar bet for Cheltenham. Obviously, like I said, I put her up because I thought she was a big price, and I still think she could be a massive player in that race. But like I said, I think we're going to need to see a little bit more improvement next time, which I would expect, especially as well being from a yard that I always normally associate need a run under their belt. So I know Nichols started off well at the Persian War meeting, having plenty of winners, but he said that he thought quite a few of his horses did need the run, and I just think Stormy Island did shape like she would need the run. So for me, Stormy Island, still lots to like about her, but yeah, I'd like to see her take a step forward next time out over fences. Moving on to this week, we've got some decent jumps action coming up. We're really starting to get into the thick of things now, and there's some nice horses running over the next few days. At Wetherby tomorrow, they've got a very good card. Looking forward to seeing Midnight's Legacy, who's declared to run in the juvenile hurdle there. Got some good flat form, had a nice juvenile career as a 2-year-old on the flat, you know. Beat quite a few nice stayers, now rated 90 plus, and he's shown some ability this season, winning a couple of times at Adhoc. I think he's got a flat rating of 90, and I think he's definitely an interesting candidate over hurdles. But the fact that he's going this early on in the season does slightly concern me, but still, nonetheless, I think he'll be an interesting player in that division and could be possibly a Fred Wynn horse later on down the line. So yeah, Midnight's Legacy is definitely a horse to watch out for at Wetherby on Wednesday. And also as well, Champagne Well for Fergal O'Brien, who ran in some graded contests last year. He's set to make his debut over fences tomorrow. Again, he's probably going to take all the beating in that novices chase, but I would like to see how he performs. Champagne Well, like I said, he ran well in some graded company last year, and he definitely looked like he probably would be a better chaser. However, I just have maybe 1 or 2 question marks about him if he's going to be top class, but he could be one to follow in handicap. So Champagne Well, an interesting contender now, going over fences, but like I said, I'd like to see how he does at Wetherby on Wednesday. Focusing our attentions to Friday now. Friday could be an interesting day of jumps action. There's 2 good meetings at Uttoxeter and at Fakenham. At Uttoxeter, the most interesting name that could turn up is Get in the Queue for Harry Fry. You might remember him having some strong bumper form a couple of seasons ago, and I believe he was actually Noel Feely's last ever winning ride. So yeah, he's definitely an exciting horse. He missed the whole of last season through a setback, but it's interesting now. He's going to be hopefully making a return to the racecourse over hurdles, and if he's anywhere near like his bumper form, he could be a top one to follow in novice company this year. Obviously, we don't know where he's going to go yet, like trip wise, but you like to think he's probably going to be 2 miles, 2.5 miles, you know. But he's a really exciting candidate, and Get in the Queue, I think he would definitely be one to follow in novice hurdles this season. Also as well, at Fakenham on Friday, we've got some nice horses set to come back for Paul Nicholls. We've got Southfield Stone. Also as well, Next Destination, who would be an interesting runner, had some good form when he was previously with Willie Mullins, so we've got some nice runners on Friday. On Saturday, there's a novice chase at Market Raisin where we could see Fusil Raffles. We could see Highway 102, who was meant to run at Newton Abbot on Sunday, but got withdrawn. I think that was because of the going. It was on the quick side for him, so we didn't get to see him there, and that might be a problem this week. There's not going to be much rain around, so if it is dry conditions, we could see a whole host of non-runners. So Highway 102, a Grade 2 winning hurdler last season for Chris Gordon. He could make his chase debut at Market Raising on Saturday, so he would be one to watch there. And moving on to Sunday as well, Foss Lass is going to see a good card. We could see Fiddler on the Roof make his chase debut there. Some other nice horses on show that have entries, including, again, I think Next Destination is booked for that race. Emma Tom as well has an entry, so there's an exciting novice chase there. Moving on to the Q&A section of the show, and I've got a couple of questions this week that were asked in the comments box below, and if you've got any questions, just type a question in the comments box below, anything regarding Cheltenham. I'll try and pick out 2 or 3 each week and answer them in the show. And if you don't leave a comment in the comments box below, you can always reach me on Twitter, where my handle is @LuckyLoader15. But yeah, going back to the question and answers, I've got 2 this week, and the first question comes from Chris Pollard, who wants to know my thoughts on Envoy Allen. Now, we know about Envoy Allen, we know that he's unbeaten so far, and he was a terrific novice hurdler last season. I will admit I did have my doubts about him at the Cheltenham Festival. I just thought we were getting a little bit carried away. I didn't think he'd beaten much, but once we saw his performance at the Cheltenham Festival, which was arguably a career best performance, yeah, he did look the real deal, and I'll take back everything I said there. I was unconvinced by some of his runs earlier in the season. I know the Abracadabras form and also as well the Darva Star form from the race earlier in the season did look strong, but I just had my slight reservations over him, and I just wondered if he might not show up on the day. But the way he travelled into the race was absolutely superb, and he was a very comfortable winner, and he was definitely one of the highlights of the 2020 Cheltenham Festival. Now, we all know he's going to be going novice chasing this season. It was confirmed a few weeks ago by Gordon Elliott. I haven't heard of any starting points yet where we're going to see him. However, I do think he's going to improve, I think, for going over fences. In regards to trip, I think for me the Marsh Chase would be the ideal target, 2.5 miles. There have been some people saying maybe he could step up to 3 miles for the RSA. It could possibly be an option, and the way he travelled into the race at Cheltenham last time in the Ballymore suggests you think he could handle 3 miles, but 3 miles over fences can sometimes be a different game, and I just wonder, even though he's got plenty of class, if he lacks maybe the real stamina to last over 3 miles. In my opinion, I think Connections would be best going down the Marsh route, and if he progresses like he did last season, I think he's going to be a serious player. Would I want to be getting stuck into him at 3-1 at the moment? Possibly not. You know, going over fences isn't always straightforward. We see plenty of top class hurdlers try going over fences, and it doesn't always work out. I like to see him go over a fence first and have a complete round before I would back him for any Cheltenham targets, but obviously I do know that if he was to go and win on his chase debut, he would definitely shorten in all the markets, and probably his most likely destination is the Marsh Chase, and you can currently back him at 3-1 at the moment, and if he was to go and win that, he could probably shorten up a little bit more, probably could shorten up 2-1, 6-4, who knows. But yeah, Envoy Allen, I think he could be, like most people are saying, a top class chaser, and if he was mine, I would be focusing towards the Marsh Chase. That's where I'll be going there. The other question I had was from Andy Jackson regarding my thoughts on Chantry House. Now, Chantry House, you might remember, he finished 3rd in the Supreme at the Cheltenham Festival earlier this year, and I thought he did the job really nicely in the end to make the frame. He travelled nicely into the race, and he ran a really good contest that day. But for me, I just wonder about Chantry House. Is he really top draw? I think he's a nice horse, but for me, I just think he lacks the class to be a proper Grade 1 horse. I was actually at Newbury when he won at the Betfair Hurdle meeting, where he did the job really nicely, but I don't know really what he beat that day. He obviously won at Cheltenham as well in December. He's a lovely prospect, he's a nice horse, Chantry House, but for me, I just don't know if against the likes of Shiskin or possibly Envoy Allen, if he would be able to overturn them. I think he's probably worth having a crack over 2.5 miles. I think he would probably benefit stepping up in trip slightly. I think over 2 miles he's always going to find a few that have a little bit more speed than he does over that trip. But over 2.5 miles, I think he would definitely be seen to more effect. But Chantry House, again, I wouldn't really want to be getting stuck into any anti-post betting with him at the moment, not until we see how he's performed over fences. The plan is, I believe, Nick Henderson has said to go over fences this season. But Chantry House, he's a nice horse, but I would like to see what he can do over a fence first before I would back anything for him. So yeah, that's my feelings on Chantry House. So like I said, if you've got any questions, drop me a line in the comments box below, get hold of me on Twitter, and I'll be answering your questions every week. Now this is the part of the show where I will be giving an anti-post selection, and my anti-post selection in this week's show is gonna be McFabulous for the Stayers Hurdle. Yeah, I'm believing all the hype. You can currently back him at 14-1 at the moment, and I just think he could be the real deal in this division this season. Now if we look at the Stayers Hurdle market, I've currently put up the best prices. This is with Oddschecker at the time of recording for the Stayers Hurdle. And we can see at the top of the betting is Paisley Park. You can currently back him at 7-1. And even though Paisley Park, he's a really admirable horse, he's got a great story, he's going to have to answer a few questions this season, especially after that latest performance at the Cheltenham Festival, where he was very disappointing, and it was Liz Nagano Oscar who eventually won for Rebecca Curtis. Now, no disrespect to Liz Nagano Oscar, but I think he was a little bit of a shock win on the day. He had been running well in those Grade 1 races. He made the frame a few times, you know, behind the likes of Paisley Park before. However, that was really the day that it all come together for him, and he finally delivered upon his previous good performances. But looking at this division as a whole, I do think it's really weak, and it really does lack an X-Factor horse. And if there has to be an X-Factor horse in it, I think it can be McFabulous. And Paul Nicholls, we know he can do well in this division. You might remember a few years ago we had Big Bucks who won this race plenty of times, and even though he's got a long way to go to be anything like Big Bucks, he could definitely be Paul Nicholls' best candidate in this division. And like I said, Paisley Park, he's got question marks to answer. You will be able to see as well in the betting. You would have seen Honeysuckle, you would have seen Benny Desjeux. I think Benny Desjeux, if she went over 3 miles in hurdles, would be really interesting with the Mayor's Allowance. I was a little bit annoyed that she didn't go for the race last year, because I think she's more effective over a staying trip. However, going back to McFabulous, the way he won that Persian War, despite probably not beating very much at all, like I said earlier in the show, I just think he's absolutely oozes class, and he's got a lot more progression to come. The plan will be to go to Newbury for the Grade 2 long distance hurdle there, and then I imagine he probably might go for the Cleve hurdle at Cheltenham at the Cheltenham Trials meeting in January, and then he'll probably be put away for the Stayers. So we kind of roughly know his campaign. Like I've said before in the past, this division over the last few years has really lacked an absolute superstar. We thought Paisley Park could be that, but he's going to have to bounce back, you know, and it says it all. With him being favourite at 7-1 with question marks over him, it's a really wide open division. And McFabulous, who definitely looks like he is a top class horse and could have more to come over this trip, he definitely looks like the rising star in this division. And if he was to go on and win one more race, if he was to go on and win that Newbury race, I think he would be favourite in this market. So I think 14-1 is still a very backable price. And if he does go and win another race or two, We know the plan is the Stayers Hurdle. Paul Nicholls has said it. I think he'll be 5-1 favourite for this race, and he could even be shorter if the manner of his victories are very impressive. But he's got high cruising speed. He's got a great turn of foot. He should probably be able to get the 3 miles, no problem, from his breeding. He's actually related. I think he's a half brother to Wait Impatiently, you know, so he's got some top class connections in his pedigree. And I just think McFabulous can be the real deal in the Stayers Hurdle this season. So that's it for episode 2 of the Loaders Lane to Cheltenham. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe here to my YouTube channel at LuckyLoaders15. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do, where my handle is at LuckyLoader15. And if you want to find out a little bit more about myself, why don't you check out my website, which is www.chrisloaderracing.co.uk. So please gamble responsibly. Hopefully you've seen a few Cheltenham clues in this video, and we'll be seeing you soon.